Ladies and gentlemen, we finally made it. Is this the final time that we see Ethan Hunt? Welcome into another review on the channel. I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch the video. Today, we are talking about everyone's favorite Hollywood madman, Tom Cruise, and the latest edition of the Mission Impossible franchise. We are talking Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. One of my most anticipated films of the year, one that I had very high hopes for, one that I, was incredibly excited for is really the way I want to say that. I'm going to go through everything you need to know. I'm going to give you my full comprehensive review. We'll get into a little spoiler talk at the end as well, but before we get into that, if you love these reviews, if you enjoyed the video today, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to grow this channel even further than we already have. I really do appreciate it. This is not a job for me. This is a hobby. I love talking about movies. I love talking about different films. And yes, I know I haven't been posting as much, but with the summer months here in blockbuster season coming up, we're going to have a lot more reviews coming out. This is the first of many, so don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into the review. So this is how it's going to go. If this is your first time watching a review, I have a rating system of how I rate my movies, and I'm going to go through the system, tell you what I liked, tell you what I didn't like. I'll give you my final score, and then we'll get into some spoiler talk at the end. So I gave Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning an 83 out of 100. Look, it's definitely not as strong as some of the previous installments. Mission Impossible Fallout is still by far my favorite of the franchise. I really liked Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'm also a big fan of Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol as well. And so this is one of the weaker entries in this series, but that doesn't mean it's not good, doesn't mean it doesn't have its factors that work out. So I'm going to tell you why I rated it the way I rated it, but first let's get into the synopsis. Ethan Hunt and the IMF team continue their search for the terrifying AI known as the Entity, which has infiltrated intelligence networks all over the globe, with the world's governments and a mysterious ghost from Ethan's past on their trail. Joined by new allies and armed with the means to shut down the entity for good, Hunt is in the race against time to prevent the world as we know it from changing forever. Starring Tom Cruise, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. You know what you're going to get from these movies. They are like a Fast and Furious. You're going to get that action. It's that shove popcorn in your face type movie. And that works well. There's two sequences. These are the sequences that everyone has talked about. It's the underwater sequence in the submarine, and then it's the final sequence on the biplanes. They're incredible. I mean, they are. This is top-notch action filmmaking, and nothing else in this movie will take away from that. Those two sequences alone are incredible. I was on the edge of my seat. That final sequence in particular, the sequence underwater, I was on the edge of my seat, but that final sequence, it's got that classic Mission Impossible flair where it takes you down to the very last second, and I actually absolutely loved it. I thought it was very well executed and very well done. Let's get into my full, thorough review of this, though. So I gave performances 12 out of 15. I'm not going into a Mission Impossible movie looking for Oscar-caliber performances. Tom Cruise is as good as he is. Ethan Hunt is kind of I hate to say, kind of a bland character in terms of, acting work. He is kind of one-dimensional, if that makes sense. But that doesn't mean he's bad. And I think that Tom Cruise is perfectly fine here. I think the rest of the supporting cast is great as well. I do think there's a lot of people that are just kind of here to be here, though, and didn't do anything to really contribute. I think the performances are fine. I wouldn't, again, say that they're going to win any awards or anything like that. They serve their purpose, though, and I really like that. Honestly, I think Ving Rhames is the best performance of this. And spoiler alert, he's only in this for a brief period of time. But I think his performance, honestly, was probably one of the best of the entire movie. And the rest of them were tamer. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. I still gave him a 12 out of 15. I think they get the job done, but it is what it is. The entertainment's a 10 out of 10. That's always how it's going to be with these movies. I'm always going to be thoroughly entertained, no matter how good or bad they are. It is like Fast and Furious for me. Fast and Furious, a lot of those movies are genuinely not that good, but I love them because I'm entertained. and that those are guilty pleasure movies for me. Mission Impossible, I think, are better movies. But they also entertain the hell out of me. So, I've already kind of touched on it. Those two main sequences, the one in the ones on the planes at the end, and then of course you have the ones in the submarine underwater. Those are the two biggest set pieces of the entire movie, and I think they're incredibly well done. They bring the right amount of tension, the right amount of stress, and it didn't feel like they were overdoing it. They felt legit. They felt like real-life scenarios, and Tom Cruise being the madman doing his own stunts, I mean, that adds to it. If it was overly CGI'd and he wasn't actually doing the stunts, you'd be able to tell. But with Cruise being the madman action hero that he is, everything felt real and lived in, and I really respected that and really liked that. I gave directing an 8 out of 10. I think Christopher McQuarrie does a great job at directing action. I think that him and Tom Cruise are some of the best collaborators in the game. They each trust each other to a fault, I think, maybe, and will trust each other until the very end of time. And that lends itself to an incredibly effective and cohesive product. And it did everything it needed to do from a directing standpoint to, give you the action thrill ride that they wanted to give you. And I really like that. I have issues with the writing, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but I think the directing as a whole, you can't do it better. I mean, 8 out of 10, solid, very well done. I give Emotions a 7 out of 10. This is more of a loaded conversation that I'll get into kind of at the end when I talk about the writing and get into spoiler territory. But with it being the final movie, I didn't really feel like the emotions hit at an all-time high for me. I was definitely tense and I was definitely thrilled. But a lot of the moments when you were supposed to feel emotion, like sadness and things like that, or even happiness, I didn't fully feel that. And I do think that some of that has to do with the writing, which I will touch on in a few minutes. Cinematography, I gave a 4 out of 5. I think it's shot well. Done exactly how you need it to. It's not going to win an Academy Award for cinematography, but it looks good, and it does the job it needs to. And I think the IMAX medium, I saw it in IMAX. The IMAX medium was great for those, especially the action scenes. It was very well done. Score 3 out of 5. I didn't really notice the score. I noticed it a few times, but it did feel kind of repetitive to me at times. Didn't do nearly anything to blow me away. So yeah, I mean, it was there. It had its classic Mission Impossible charm, but it did feel a little repetitive for me. So I'm not going to really give it more than that. I will say pacing, I gave a 4 out of 5, and for a movie that clocked in at just under 3 hours, that's really good. The pace did fly. I didn't really feel the pace at all, and by the time we're in that final act, you hang on for the ride, and then the movie's over. So I will give it credit. I think the pacing, it did not feel like a 3-hour movie, and that's a really great gauge on how good a movie's paced. If it's 3 hours, did it feel like you were trudging along? I never felt that. 4 out of 5 for pacing overall. Technical, I gave it 15 out of 15. These movies are technical marvels. They are. I mean, people can say what they want. These movies are marvels of cinematic filmmaking. And I think that hats off to all the cast and crew for achieving what they did, because these movies in general are hard to make. They are not easy to make. Making movies like this are a million times harder, and for them to execute it in the way that they did, hats off to the cast and crew. 15 out of 15 for technical. They really killed it. And then in a rewatchability, I gave a 4 out of 5. It's a longer movie. It's a little tough to get through at times, so it's definitely not a 5 out of 5 rewatchability for me, but a 4 out of 5 nonetheless. All right. Writing, I gave an 11 out of 15. And from here on out, I'm just going to give a blanketed spoiler warning from here on out. I really enjoyed the movie overall. I think the action's really great. I do have some issues with the writing, but I think overall it's a satisfying conclusion to this saga. But I do have issues with the writing. So if you don't want spoilers, please click off now. Go watch the movie, then come back and we can get into a little bit of spoiler talk. If you don't care about spoilers, I'm going to talk about spoilers in the writing. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm going to try to stay as spoiler-free as possible, but I will have to talk about some spoilers circumstantially to talk about the writing. The issues I have with the writing are this. This movie is very bloated at times. I think it's trying to do too much. And it does kind of have that difficulty being the quote-unquote final film in this very popular action franchise, they tried to tie up too much, bring in too much, and try to, like, it was a very big bogged down kind of mess at times. I think the first act of this movie is incredibly hard to get through at times. It's got a lot of flashbacks and callbacks, and for people that hadn't watched the movies in a long time, myself included, they did help at times. But I also did feel that there was some unnecessary additions to the movie that didn't need to be there. And I think that if they would have kind of stripped it down to its parts and not convoluted it as much as they did, it probably would have been a more effective movie, in my opinion. I literally blanked on what I was going to say. I think that, again, overly bogged down, trying to do too much, it gets a little too big for its britches. It's trying to be this be-all, end-all. And I do think it does a good job in general at tying up what it needs to do. But at the end of the day, this isn't a final film. And I'll talk about that in a second. I remember what I was going to say. This doesn't tackle AI really at all. The entity is a form of aggressive artificial intelligence that's constantly learning. You don't really see the entity in play at all in this movie. And I get why, because of Dead Reckoning, everything goes analog, and I get that, but you're not seeing the entity really wreak havoc at all. You're only seeing it in small parts in the bunker when they're showing that another country has lost control of their nuclear arsenal. That's really it. And they could have pushed the AI, the fear of AI even more. I think they did a good job of that in Dead Reckoning, and how everything is connected and how reliant we are on technology. They didn't tackle that at all here, and I didn't really feel like we got to a really great conclusion for the entity as a villain. I wasn't scared. Like world-ending event, blah, 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 blah. But you didn't really see that in effect here. It was not a compelling enough villain for you to be very frightened. And honestly, Gabriel wasn't that compelling of a villain. You know why? Because they're not involved in the movie at all. This movie is Ethan and the team split up and them trying to find the basically the pad in the submarine, and then you just kind of see Gabriel and the entity at the very end, and then you've got the action sequence. Like, our overarching fear of these villains just never was there. You see Gabriel at the beginning of the movie, and he's like, "You're gonna bring me the thing," and then you don't see him until the end of the movie again. Like, that storytelling just didn't work, and the reason why is because they were trying to tie up all of these loose ends, and it got very convoluted and very bogged down. There were side plots and things like that were thrown in that didn't need to be there. It was an overly convoluted mess at times, and they didn't get to the butt of it. Like, Dead Reckoning was great because you felt this constant threat of this AI that is taking over everything and is this overarching entity that knows everything and knows what you're going to do, and how are we going to combat this? And there's just none of that in this movie. There isn't. You don't see the entity at all. They talk about the entity. You don't see the entity. It's this ghost. And like, that can be interesting at times, but it just didn't work here for me. Because you don't see anything happening. You just got this ticking clock, and you're just kind of going from scene to scene, and that is what it is. So I am kind of sour on the writing in that effect. That's where the emotion comes in. I didn't feel like fear. I didn't feel emotion. Like, there's tense scenes where you're like, oh my God, is Ethan going to make out of it? But you're like, of course he is, because he's got to get to the end. Like, that just didn't work for me at all. And that left a little bit of sour taste in my mouth. And that's why I have it rated a little lower than I do. Because most Mission Impossible movies I absolutely love, and I rate them in like the 90s and stuff like that. This is an 83. This is almost a C grade for me. I do also want to say I don't think the stakes were high enough. They tried to make the stakes high enough, but if this was going to be a final movie, I hate to say it, more people had to die. You had Luther. Rest in peace to my homie. Luther passes in the beginning of the movie to try to set the stakes, but then you don't do anything from there. I mean, I hate to say it, and again, we're in spoiler territory, guys. I told you, I warned you. I hate to say it, I think Benji should have died at the end. I love Benji. He's a great character, and that would have added to the emotion. I thought he was, but then when he shows up at the end, you're like, oh, shoot. Nobody's dying. You know? And that was kind of the thing with this, and this is kind of my overarching issue with this movie. It didn't feel like a last movie at the end. This wasn't the last movie in the Mission Impossible franchise. It's not. They left it way too open-ended. Honestly, if I would have had it my way, I hate to say this, guys, if this really was going to be the final Mission Impossible movie, Ethan would have died at the end. And you all know what scene I'm talking about. When he plummets and his parachute doesn't open and he gets the thing into the device and the device works and they save the day. Ethan's parachute shouldn't have opened. He should have risked his life and given his life to make sure that the entity got caught for the good of mankind and sacrifice himself. Look, I'm all for this franchise continuing. I would love for it to continue. But if you were heralding this as the final movie, the final reckoning, this is one last time. That was the tagline of every trailer. I need you to trust me one last time. If this was going to be the final movie, you needed to tie it up better. Because Ethan is a stubborn son of a bitch. As long as he's alive, he will never stop fighting. He tried to do that in Mission Impossible, what was it, 3? He tried to do it in Mission Impossible 3 and it didn't work. So as long as he lives, he's going to try to save the world. So I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. It was not a satisfying conclusion for me. Like, if you wanted to end it, you had the perfect out. And I would have bought it. And that would have upped the stakes. That would have upped the emotion. There was a sense of finality. If this is the final movie, there needs to be a sense of finality. There's no sense of finality here. You have all of the characters show up in Trafalgar Square in London, England, and kind of nod at each other, and then they all go their separate ways. How many times have we seen that in movies? Like, everyone goes their separate ways, and then, we got to get the band back together. There's another big threat, Mission Impossible 9. Like, if this was going to be the final movie, there needs to be finality, and there just wasn't. Luther's the only person that dies in this movie on the good guys. The only one. And Nick Offerman's character. Sorry, him as well. He took a bullet for the president, which was sick. That's it. Everyone else is still alive. Everyone's made amends. Like, it seems like, Ethan's going to walk off into the sunset, but we know that's not how this works. We know Ethan is a stubborn son of a bitch, and if there's a threat, he's going to save the world. So I didn't buy it. And for that reason, I'm sour on the ending. I'm sour on it. The action's incredible. You know? And it tied up a lot of loose ends, but it did not tie up the biggest loose end of all, which is Ethan Hunt. It didn't do it. So that's like, I'm really sour on that. Like, the emotional value of this, if they were marketing this as the final movie, the emotional value of that's not there. And there is no finality. And then the first half is a convoluted mess. The writing, I'm very sour on the writing. I hate to say it. And I talked to my mom after. I called my mom after. And she's going to see it tomorrow at the time of recording this. And I just couldn't tell her how I felt because I didn't want to give anything away. Because I don't want to spoil things. And so I was like, I just told her, I'm very conflicted. Like, I liked a lot of it, but there are things that I'm sour on, that I'm conflicted on. And a lot of it has to do with the writing. I think the first half of this movie is very convoluted. I think when you have the big sequences, it's awesome. And that is cinematic marvels at its best. But the writing just struggles. And the lack of finality kills me. If you just did Dead Reckoning Part 2, and then they walk off into the sunset after the entity's gone, great! I got no problem with that. This is a good movie. Great! But no, it's the final reckoning. I need you to trust me one last time. This is it. That's how they were marketing this. Tom Cruise even said on one of the red carpets, it's called Final Reckoning for a reason. Like, he said something to that effect. Like, it's called Final Reckoning. Tom, we're not stupid. Like, This movie's going to make a crap ton of money at the box office. They're going to want to make another one. And Tom, of course, being the action-seeking daredevil that he is going to want to make another one. Like Top Gun 3, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, that's kind of my bigger spoiler kind of issues with the writing. Look, I don't want to discourage people from watching this movie, though, because, like, there's a lot to like about it. Like, the action, you go for the action. Again, it's like Fast and Furious. It's an elevated Fast and Furious. Like, the action is awesome, and you're going to enjoy your time at the movie. It's just, like, for me, on a critical level, there are glaring issues with the writing. And that just kind of took me out of it a little bit. So I was a little disappointed. But overall, I enjoyed it. I still give it an 83 out of 100. That's still a fairly high rating for me, but I did have issues with the writing at the end of the day. That's where I'm going to end this. Longer review, but I had a lot I wanted to talk about. So you guys go down below in the comments and you let me know down below. What did you think of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know your thoughts. I want to have a conversation with you guys down below in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We're trying to grow the channel. If you enjoyed this review today, we're going to have more long-form reviews like this coming out in the future. I'm just going to show you guys. I don't even know if I should be doing this, but I'm just going to show you as a little bit of a teaser. Here we go. I'm an AMC A-list member. Lilo and Stitch, I'm going to see tomorrow. Early access for Ballerina. Early access for How to Train Your Dragon. Early access for F1. Like, we are strapped and loaded, ready for the summer blockbuster season. I'm incredibly excited. And if you are as well, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Lock us in. Do not miss out on the fun. It's going to be a really great... I think we are in for a very fun summer blockbuster season. All right, that's where I'm going to end it, guys. I appreciate you all so much for watching. Again, get down below in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. And until next time, we'll see you later.